Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blame It on Marketing. This is part 2 of an awesome podcast collaboration we are doing with Two Pizza Marketing. We're recording them back to back, and it's very exciting. I'm a couple of gin and tonics in now. It's 2 a.m. for Ruta, and Ashley and Melissa are just having a great time.
I've got tea over here. Tea.
Yeah, they've got tea.
Coffee.
It's an appropriate hour for us to be
It's
drinking.
an international podcast, this one.
We've gone international. And in this week's episode, well, for part 2 of our collaboration, we're going to be talking about efficient small marketing teams and why that's so important. But before we get into the topic, Ashley and Melissa, would you just do a quick intro to yourselves for us?
Yes, of course. Super excited about this collaboration. Yeah, part 1 was super fun, so be sure to go over to Two Pizza Marketing to hear that one if you would like. We rant all about how to just convince your CEO that marketing is amazing. So it's a great topic. But yes, so my name's Ashley McGovern. I head up our content strategy at Realink, which is a B2B tech company within property, multifamily real estate. And then my co-host, which I'll let her go ahead and do her intro. We started Two Pizza Marketing almost 2 years ago, Melissa, which is crazy. Yeah, crazy to think about. But the impetus of our podcast is that we discuss small team challenges because we wear many hats at early stage startups. So we like to talk about the marvelous mess that comes with that. And as far as the name, because we get a lot of questions about the name Two Pizza Marketing, it follows the two pizza rule, which says the most agile, effective team meetings are ones small enough to only need 2 pizzas for the meeting. So that's our podcast. But yeah, Melissa, let's talk about you now.
Yeah, I'm glad you gave the story of the two pizza. We on our website, we refer to it as the gentleman who started Amazon came up with the two pizza rule. So a lot of people have heard it through his initial idea that he applied at Amazon. And, you know, I think with Two Pizza Marketing, a lot of people see that as a negative when you have a small team, but the way that it's framed with two pizzas is that's a really good thing. We can move faster. We can be more efficient, as we're going to talk about today. So it's a really good thing to be a two pizza marketer. I am Melissa Moody. I am general manager at Matcha, which is a brand of Comsor. We're in the house of authentic connections, we like to say. I am a general manager now, but in title, but I am a 20-year marketer. I've been kind of in the CMO and marketing management levels for the last few years. And I'm just really passionate about having one-to-one conversations with other great marketers. And that's how our podcast started. Honestly, it's still the why for what we do. Ashley and I love to sit down and learn from incredible marketers like yourselves. We also like to binge other marketing podcasts like Blame It on Marketing. So yeah, thrilled to be here. Really excited to talk about the topic. Efficiency in marketing is one of my hills that I'm willing to fall over and lay down on. I won't say die on.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I find you find these little memes / graphics on the internet all the time, and it's like you can't have everything right. So it's like enough sleep, a good career, and a happy social life. You got to pick 2. With small marketing teams, it's usually it's a small marketing team, so there's a limited amount of hands and people. You typically have a budget of some sort, maybe not a large budget, and then you also typically have a massive crunch on time and the need to perform. And I don't want to say you can't have all of them, but how do you balance that, and how do you work with that trifecta, which is, you know what, probably challenging for most people out there in any actually profession, not just marketing.
I mean, I'll take this one on top of the day job and side projects, and also the fact that I have kids at home, it becomes compounded. I think for me, I could probably talk about a lot of different tips, but the one that I will say has shaped my whole career, really. And this is also how I pick like my next role that I'm in is I try to get away from the destination and focus more on the where I'm at right now. Because if you think about even hitting quarterly goals or getting your startup to succeed, or those points which signal success, they are far off, and it feels like you have to do everything right now. And I think the only way that I can get out of the headspace of do it all right now, there's always another thing to do at 10 p.m. Like There's always another campaign to build. There's always something to do in marketing. And for me, that is the thing I've recognized can become debilitating. So the way that I approach it is, am I working on something now that is, in the case of business, additive to the eventual goal, like it is getting me closer to the goal? Or in the case of my career, it's, am I in a role now where if I walked away, I would have added something to my career growth? It's not just, I need to be here for a year to prove I succeeded at something. It's no, even having the role, if it's a giant failure, is adding to my vision of where I want to be. And I think that's the same in the actual marketing work itself. Is the thing I'm doing now, even if it fails, if I'm running a test and it bombs, did I learn something? Did I uncover a new thing? Like, am I doing something that even if it fails, it still has value? It's really, for me, that mindset is the only way that I can continue to be as happy as I am in this absolute mess of, early stage marketing.
I totally echo that sentiment. And I like that you took more of like your career approach to like balancing it all, because you have another podcast, not just this podcast, and then you have your family and you have your full-time job. So I like that you took that perspective. I'll take like a work perspective with like being a small team marketer, just to have multiple perspectives. So something that I think has allowed me to balance it all, because I'm someone that likes to be busy, because I've worked in the corporate world, I have an understanding of what it's like when I'm not busy, and I never want to go back to that. So I always keep that top of mind when I think about like, I'm very lucky that I'm busy and that I'm solving interesting problems with great people. So that's my career like motivation with it all. So when I think about like the actual work of balancing all the different facets of marketing, because again, I'm a small team marketer. We only have 2 people on my team. So I oversee like PR, content marketing, social media, blog, website, SEO, so demand gen, like all those different things. And what I distilled it down to is that the right system, so thinking like tech, like Grammarly, Canva, Descript, Asana, HubSpot, Salesforce, like having all the basis of that lined up has allowed me to be an efficient operator. So like systems. And then I like to think about like processes. And I'm a big SOP person because again, I came from the corporate world where like SOPs were solidified before I got there. So it was really interesting going to the startup world where there were no SOPs, and I had to like figure that out for myself and create it, which I love the autonomy with that. So then also like figuring out your processes, I think can allow for being an efficient small team marketer. And then my last thing I would suggest is, and this is big, is agreements with people. And this comes down to communication. So something that I learned, I wish I would have learned earlier in my career, is that like you in the startup world, you can't necessarily just rely on someone to do something if they haven't agreed to doing that thing. Because again, we're owning so many different facets that you might not know if somebody's in charge of that. So a good example would be like our head of partnerships. I want to do a case study with one of our agency partners. I would go to him and be like, hey, can you reach out and introduce me to them? And then from there, I'll take the reins and continue corresponding with them. Can you agree to that? And that's a yes or no. And so what that does with being a small team marketer is when you get those agreements, then you don't have to infer or guess if somebody did what they were supposed to do, which then can push back timelines and deadlines for certain things. And then like you have to slack about it, and then you chalk it up to miscommunication. And that's where things start to fall apart. And that can be blamed on marketing if you're not doing that efficiently. And so that's just something else I always try to give advice to the younger marketers, is like getting those agreements in place.
Definitely. It actually sounds like from both perspectives, both the kind of life side, Melissa, and also actually from your side, actually just being really organized and making sure that you are consistently learning are kind of critical to that.
I've got one more. This is my most important one. It's right behind me. This is my no button for all the listeners.
I love that.
Yes.
It literally is a button that you hit and it says no. So
do you do this on work calls, Melissa?
I want to get, so this one is like a very loud male, and I want to actually, you can get these custom built so I could put my own nose in it. That's what I want to do.
That's amazing. I love that.
I love that. Just halfway through a call, you'd just be like, and they'd be like, don't do it. And you just see your hand going to press the button.
My favorite no from somebody is actually someone that Emma we worked with. I won't out him, but you'll know who I'm talking about. So whenever you're in a meeting with him and something comes up that isn't, I guess, urgent to the meeting and is like additive in a sense that we need to say no to this because we're busy with other stuff, he'll be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's come back to it.
Oh,
yeah.
the parking lot. The parking lot. I always called the parking lot. I'm like,
it.
that's so great. We're going to put that in the parking lot. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
People feel so good. Like it's
yeah. So if the hard no is hard, I feel like that's a very nice way of doing it. And I obviously, if you work with someone for long enough, you realize what they're doing. But for the most part, it's a very nice way of doing it. But you get to say no and you get to park it and move on.
Boundaries.
With whatever
You're just setting. You're just setting some boundaries, which is good for everybody. On that thread, obviously, in part 1 of our collaboration over on Two Pizza Marketing, which you can listen to, we spent a lot of time talking about CEOs and those relationships and how marketers can kind of manage those. But obviously, when you are on a small team and you're trying to be super efficient, I have no doubt that it's not just necessarily SLT, like the senior leadership team, that other people in the business can also railroad your plans, even if you are really organized and you've got a no button. So how do you try to manage those either upward relationships or relationships in general with the rest of the business?
So kind of similar to what we were just discussing is like, I found a roundabout way without directly saying no, because I found a roundabout way to say no. And that's basically, I have to go back to our company goals, like, and we call them rocks. And I'm like, well, these are our rocks. And I don't necessarily think our CEO would want to sign off of this because it's not tied to one of those rocks. And that's it. And they understand it because they will have people also come to them as a functional leader, and we want to like have them do something for us, and they will even say that too. So like we have like a shared understanding of what that means. So very short answer, but as far as like saying no, it's easy just to be like, our goals don't align with this, but I will put it on the back burner. And I always try to follow up with that just to keep that relationship good with them. But yeah, that's typically worked for me in the past.
I think the traditional one for me is get them involved early. Even if it's a quick touch point, let them know what you're going to be working on and your intent behind it, so that when you circle back and you try to get them on board, they're not surprised. There's nothing senior leadership hates more than being surprised with what do you mean you've been doing that for 4 weeks? So even if they don't agree, better to at least give them the early heads up, and then you will feel a lot less pain when you come in at the end.
One of the things that I keep doing in businesses that I go into, and this might be a little bit shady, is I keep setting up what I call the marketing roadmap. And it's like, I've basically just stolen the product roadmap. And I'm like, this is the marketing roadmap. What you've asked for is not on the roadmap. we'll put it in the dump list down the end, or the ideas list. But this is the roadmap. This is what's coming up. And it's public and everyone can see it. And then when you're in meetings, you're bringing it up and you're constantly saying like, this is the marketing roadmap. And it's always funny because, you know, like when you work in a small tech company, the chances of there being a product roadmap would be lucky. That's very bitchy.
Come on now.
Sorry, I've had a couple of gins.
I'm owning product now, and it's not that hard. Like there can be the whole complex. There can be the whole thing.
Take.
That's the hot take. Just start owning product too. But no, I think it's important that even if it's not your entire project system, like the engineers have their implementation, like whether they're, you know, somewhere else. I think it's really important to literally have something as basic as cards that say, that say, here's what we're doing now. Here's what's in the backlog. And then here's what's in the to talk about next. Here's what's in the revisit in Q4 bucket, you know, whatever Ruta is like, we'll get to it later. We'll circle back to that later. And then my favorite is I also have a bucket, and this is for marketing and product I'm speaking to. There's a blue sky bucket. People come out of the woodwork with creative blue sky ideas, and they're often wonderful and they can be fantastic, but you need to have a place to capture those. If they just get chalked up to being a crazy idea, either they never get done, or they get everybody excited and it's distracting and it shouldn't be the thing that's done. So it's like, definitely create, when you're in your marketing, quote unquote, roadmap planning, even if it's very rough, have a place to drop blue sky ideas or just for discussion ideas.
Yeah, definitely. We actually, because we were getting an influx of creative ideas, we created a marketing request channel in Slack where they have to submit everything. So then, and that syncs to Asana, which is our project management system that we use. So then we already have like what you're talking about, like that card and that stream added there. And that has helped us just consolidate things that doesn't require us to like manually go put that stuff in. But again, like we want to get those ideas and put them on the back burner.
So talking about basically these lists of things that you need to do as a marketing team and that people are asking you for, I see a lot when I go into small marketing teams as a fractional CMO that the marketing teams kind of function as a support office for whatever anyone needs. Decks and slides are the same thing. Decks, docs. Yeah, they're taker. I need this. Okay, cool. I'll go away. So what's the reality of going from maybe something like that or some level of that to actually turning around campaigns and being really focused and getting stuff out as a small team?
Oh, you guys can't see me on the fan. I was getting angry at the way you're describing it.
We're going to use that bit in the clip.
I was like, oh, I'm getting so angry.
The no bosses coming out.
Number one is, let's go back to this idea of a roadmap. You need to be able to show people what you want to do 1 month out, 2 months out, 3 months out. And I'm talking early stage. Like, you may not even do that thing 3 months from now, but you need to show them that there is a plan and that is where your time will be spent. And if it is, creating a new social proof playbook and implementing it, show them that this is what I am doing, so that when somebody shows up and says, hey, can you tweak this slide deck for me? You can say, even if it's a CEO, you can say, I could do that, or I could be working on this. It's your choice. And they're like, oh, I guess I can just do it myself, right? You have to have, if you don't have your path in front of you, everybody will lead you anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I totally second that. And from what I just discussed with like the request channel in our Slack, that makes it sound like we're a ticket taker. And to be honest, at first we were, and to some extent, it might take some time for you to figure out the business, figure out the dynamics, and fulfill those requests to build that trust with your CEO, which is something we talked about in part 1. And you might have to do that for a little bit, but eventually what you want to do is make marketing, you want them to see marketing as a strategy function of the business rather than ticket takers. And similar to what Melissa was just saying is like figuring out what those boundaries are and how you can respectfully say no, but also just make them aware of the things that you're working on. It comes down to communication and just stating that to them. So then they can see the trade-off. If like you have to stop to do something for them, that puts you back with the main project that you already had on your roadmap. So again, just coming back to communication.
Oh, absolutely. Like some of the things that Ruta and I used to do when we worked, we were in a really small marketing team. There was 3 of us. And we would do things like, so that we used an OKR objective setting system in the business, which was really helpful because that gave everyone a lot of clarity, and they were collaborative. So everybody knew what everyone was working on, and they were like co-owned by other departments, which was great. But also we would do things where we would have cross-departmental meetings with like product and sales, where we would sit down together once a month and just run through what we're working on and also explain things to people. So like not shying away from being like, oh, we're going to run loads of new Google ads and we're going to test them, and this is what they are, and this is what the makeup of them is, and this is what we're hoping to achieve, and then when we talk next time we'll show you how they did. And that's actually quite exciting and nice for everybody. And I think sometimes as marketers we go, oh, I don't want to have to run through this stuff with people, or I don't want them to see it because if they see it, they'll make comments and we don't want the comments and we don't want the feedback.
I love the world of async. It depends on your company, but like, I love it now. I love doing a 2-minute video on, hey, here's something we're doing. Thanks. Yeah. Like not looking for feedback. Just something we're doing.
Thank you,
enjoy.
Yeah. And a good barometer for like figuring out what to share with those functional leaders, I think took me some time to figure it out. And something that I've distilled it down to is to think about what is the selfish benefit for them? What would they want to know that doesn't really, I mean, it benefits you by sharing what it is you're working on, but why does that matter to them? And if you position the message that way, you're more likely going to figure out what information to share from there.
There's 2 new courses on blameitmarketing.com. One about customer advocacy. Can I say that as a general? Does that make sense? And one on reporting. And one of the lessons and checklists is basically a set of questions so you can build out your reporting personas. And this can kind of go also for presenting personas, I guess. So understanding exactly what that person needs, how they like to receive it, and why they should care about this, which is all basic marketing stuff, right? Like, it's actually our skills in marketing. Use it internally. I know, again, extra work, but it's going to get people engaged. It's going to get you the things you need, and it's going to get you approved much, much faster and build that trust much quicker. So yeah, totally agree.
We've lived through this. Like, I think if anyone's listening going, oh, you're talking about some utopian situation that doesn't ever exist. We've done the hard graft where we've like done the over communication thing. I think you guys probably have done the same. And then we've seen the fruits of our labor. Like, we've seen people just suddenly go, oh, I trust you. I get this thing. I'm going to let you get on with it. I mean, it can happen. We've been there. I don't know what experience you guys have had of that. Do you feel like you're maybe more into that position now? You've kind of done some of that upfront work?
Yes, 100%. And I think it took me time. And I didn't realize when I was doing it by just like over communicating with my manager and trying to emphasize my working style and communication style in a subtle way. And that helped me build that relationship. So now she can go days without asking me what I'm doing or like, can I help her with something? Because we just catch up on our one-on-one. And so that took a lot of time though to build that. And something that I really liked that we did at Real Inc., my company that I work for, is every time we hire someone, we have them take the Enneagram test, if you're familiar with it. And that just helps us understand, like from a personality level, how people operate. And it's public information. So I like deep dived on that. My manager's probably listening to this, but she'll laugh at it. But like I deep dived on that to figure out her working style, to figure out how I position certain messages to her that she can receive in a way that makes sense for her. And that really, really helped me.
That's kind of incredible. I'm a recent Enneagram junkie. I think there's so many different personality quizzes and tests and things. And I've been a big fan of Myers-Briggs when it comes to work, but with the Enneagram, it's all about helping us learn how to communicate with others. And so I think that makes perfect sense in how you're using it. I would agree. I think the cadence, I think one thing to make sure is as you start trusting, or as people start trusting and they kind of know what you're doing and you don't feel like you have to over communicate, I would just make sure to leave in a cadence that is easy to maintain, because otherwise sometimes we will swing back to, otherwise you're going to ping pong between over communication and nothing. And so I would say, get back to that like cadence that you can hold forever. Right. And maybe it's not every week a video. Maybe it's just, bullet points in the weekly newsletter or something, but make sure you don't totally drop off, because to Ashley's point, like also new employees show up all the time and they haven't had that tone set with them. So there's a little danger zone there, I think.
I haven't tried this, so I'm going to, but I have been talking to some of my colleagues about how we were saying how the Harry Potter sorting hat, in the same sort of way, very unscientific, helps us understand who's in front of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So whatever test you prefer, whether it's Harry Potter sorting hats or whatever, go for it. So obviously we've talked a lot about how the team itself can be efficient, how people can stay organized, but we do have quite a few. We're lucky. We've got some CEOs and some VCs and people who listen into our podcast. We've managed to hook them early. So for senior leaders that are listening, how can they help effectively support small marketing teams?
Oh, I will take this one because I am effectively senior leadership, and I feel like I can speak to it pretty darn well. I think the first thing is include them in the business approach. So with your marketing teams, make sure that they are fully informed of what the business goals are. Make sure that when you sit down and talk about those metrics they're passing back to you, that those metrics actually are something you care about. So marketing teams might show up with a lot of statistics that are nice to have, but help them stay focused on what are the important to have. And I don't mean SQLs and MQLs. I mean revenue focused goals. What are we trying to do? Are we, here's an example. At my last company, it really mattered when we were a period of trying to secure VC funding, because our goals when you're trying to get funding might be very different than when you're trying to scale or get more users into the product, right? Goals of a company can vary dramatically over time. So hello, senior leaders who are listening to this, be transparent with the actual goal. Don't just say, yep, it's always revenue, because it's not always revenue. And your marketing team can help support that. They might take tactics that are more driven to revenue if that is the goal. They may focus more on other tactics if the goal is to get more users to look good for investors. And so please, please, please be honest about company goals so that marketers aren't chasing a goal that is off base. I could probably go on for a long time about what senior leadership could do. The other thing I will say is give your ideas. Be open, bring amazing ideas, throw the fun stuff out there, let them see the creativity, and be the leader who cares about marketing. Be the leader who's out there social selling. My current CEO, McGovern, is a font of brilliant ideas, and he's incredible on social selling and being a part of LinkedIn and being out there. He pairs that with an understanding that it's then to the team to go and execute. So he will bring things that our team could never come up with, and they're brilliant and they're amazing. If he just set marketing off in the corner, we wouldn't get that creativity and we wouldn't have the excitement of the CEO behind what we're building. So I think sometimes actually Mac shows up like that, but a lot of CEOs, I think they actually hold back. I think they don't bring their good ideas. They don't bring their excitement. Now we aren't going to do every idea a CEO has, and some of them are, let's be honest, really creative and others are really not. But I guess what I'm getting at is, as senior leadership, be excited about marketing, be creative about it, and definitely, leave the stuff to be done to your team, but be invested in how your brand is showing up and be invested in how you're talking to customers, because especially in today's world, founder first selling, thought leadership from C-level executives is really a big component of how we go to market. So yeah, those are my 2 tips.
Oh, I love those. I will say too, just to add to it, my CEO, Matt Wyrick, he is fabulous. And he gets marketing. He loves marketing. And whenever he, at the very beginning, would collaborate with us marketing people, he would get so excited about what we could do and what we have done that it broke down all the walls that I previously had about CEOs. Because again, before that, I came from a corporate world where I never saw C-suiters. So then to feel that energy from him got me more excited about the vision and the product and where we are going to take this company. So I definitely echo that sentiment, Melissa. But from a managerial perspective or a director or heads of, I can kind of give some insight into that just because I have overseen a small team before. And something that I did that I think broke down walls with my direct reports was one, just again, communicating and collaborating with them to get them excited about it, but also taking the time to understand their motivations and aspirations within the role and what they wanted to do. Whether or not we could really supply that, I couldn't make that decision on the spot, but just letting them know that I'm here to listen and let them be heard and me try to consider their career path, I think also broke down those walls. And that's something that any managers listening should think about if they're not already, because again, I think that just helps motivate your team. And then on another level, I think is just giving clear but kind feedback, because again, always thinking of constructive criticism, and you're not just there to beat them down, because things move fast with a startup, and the quicker you can give feedback, the better for that output. But being kind, I think, is just something to always think about.
Always. I was going to say that actually when I was thinking, you guys have raised some really valid points, and I really hope everyone who's a senior leader listening is like, yep, got that. I think it starts with the kindness thing, and just even asking people on the team how they are. How are you actually doing? When we did our CEO episode with our ex-CEO, that was one of the things that stood out and made him such a brilliant human being, was that he really genuinely would start every conversation with like, how are you? And everyone in the UK always goes, we're fine. Like, that's a British thing. We can't help it. And then he would go, no, but how are you really? And if you're not, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But you then have an honest conversation. And I think it goes a long way, just asking people how they actually are. You find out a lot.
Another version of that I really like doing is I like to, when I see that somebody's working on something, so I try to, on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis at the very least, I'll reach out to the individuals on my team. And so for me, it's not just marketing, it's specifically, it's a lot of engineers as well. And sometimes, let's just say, engineers don't always love to talk about how they're doing. So what I love to do is to say, like, I see you've been working on this. How is that going? It's a little bit less like the boss just asked me a personal question, and a little bit more, they recognize me, they see me, and there's a little bit of a chance to shine. Maybe not even how's it going, but sometimes I just say, hey, I seen you've been working on that. Really appreciate it because it's important for this. Like, almost not even forcing them to have a conversation about something, but telling them you see them, telling them you acknowledge them is even a really good, simple way to start.
Thank you so much for being on. This has been so much fun. I love doing 2 episodes back to back. It almost feels like one was like the award show and this is the after party. So it's been great. Thank you for being on. If you haven't watched part 1, please go watch part 1 on 2 Pizza Marketing, which I now realize the acronym is 2 p.m., which I kind of really like as well. Exactly. And if you want to access any of the courses that we spoke about or any kind of additional stuff, blamailmarketing.com is where it's at. We hope to see you on the next one. And thank you so much again for joining us.